Ir labai noriu pasidžiaugti, kad mūsų geografija išsiplėtė ir turime svečiuose graiką, muzikologą, kuris šiuo metu gyvena Austrijoje ir Vienoje daro nuostabių muzikinių Čiurlionio sklaidos darbų. Jisai galbūt pats pristatys truputėlį apie save plačiau. Tai sutikite Chralampos Efthimious ir jo pranešimą muzikinės formos aspektai muzikiniuose Čiurlionio paveiksluose.
Can you hear me? Yes. Until we get now my PowerPoint, I would like a couple of words about, yes, thank you, about myself. I'm teaching music theory and music history at the University of Vienna, Graz, at the Lithuanian Academy of Music, and since a couple of months ago I'm a scientific member of the Čiurlionio Museum in Kaunas. I know Čiurlionis music and art since 2015, where I met my future wife, Dr. Audra Versekenaite, who teaches music theory at the Music Academy of Vilnius. Actually, at the beginning I was not impressed, neither from the paintings nor from the music. But 2015 there was a conference at the Lithuanian Music Academy on the phenomenon of melody. So I said, let's check Miške, which is the first Lithuanian symphonic work of Lithuania. And I found some extraordinary results in terms of organizing the instrumentation, the timbre of the melodies of this piece. And I was really very pleased to come to such results. Then at those time I was dealing with my first postdoc on editing manuscripts of 18th and 19th century critically in the original form, in the authentic form of the composer. So after a long of discussions, both with Professor Landsbergis at his place and Dr. Roka Zubovas, who is the grandson of the composer, and members of the university like the rector and Gražina Dr. Donaravicene, we started the complete works of Čiurlionis, which means now for the first time we will edit the scores of Čiurlionis in the authentic form as Čiurlionis wanted, because the editors until now they were editing their own stuff to the music of Čiurlionis. Great example is Jura. So that's me holding the only foreigner that holds the first symphonic poem of this country in my own hands. And now we will start with my presentation, which is about the musical form, adjusting the musical form of sonata, for example, to the musical paintings. So here are the musical paintings, and here are the paintings that we will discuss. And as you see, this is the upper part of each group and not the lower part that has a meaning. And because now here I have participants that they are not used with musical forms, now I will try to oversimplify the oversimplified version of a sonata form, which is, I am here, first subject. Then I need to move, this is the transition, to go to the second subject, which is in another tonality. So I reached the second subject. And then comes a closing group that brings me to the end of the exposition. Then comes a development, we develop those ideas. And then we have a recapitulation, where we listen all the ideas once more, harmonically slightly different. That's all what you need to know. So this is my A part, the exposition of the ideas. The development of the ideas, the B part, and let's say slightly similar, the A slashed part. Now we will not check the piano sonata of Čiurlionis, which is a huge work. We will just check the beginning of a famous sonatina of Čiurlionis, just to see optically how it looks like, because later we will speak about paintings. So this is the whole exposition, the whole first movement, ABA. So this is the end of the A, I hope you see that there are two double lines. We will see that maybe optically two paintings of Čiurlionis, and those double lines with a B and A part. So, exposition, the development, and the recapitulation. So, as I've said now, optically to see how are the proportions. You don't need now to read the notes. This is the first subject. Then we go to transition to the second subject, and then we close. Here is the development, a little different as you see, a new color, and then we go to our recapitulation. As we said, A, B, and A. Let's go to the second sonata, Sonata of the Spring, and let's discuss about the allegro. We see some kind of an island, of a peninsula on the upper part, and the same of it at the bottom. Maybe this is our A, and maybe this is our A slash, and maybe this is our B. Let's zoom. Here we have a line and 4 parts, and as you see, the first and the third part are longer, so it is maybe our first and second subject. So here it is optically now. The exposition, the first theme, transition, second theme, closing. Maybe. Let's check the recapitulation. The upper part, the exposition, down part, the recapitulation. You see that they're similar, but they're not identical. And big differences in the third part, which has also in music another tonality. Okay, for those that are here musicologists, in exposition it is in the dominant, if we have a major sonata in major, and in the recapitulation it is in the tonic, okay? So, and also slight differences. So maybe this is the exposition, the development, and the recapitulation. The 4 parts. And now as you check at the beginning of the development, we see some trees, and it is obvious that there is a wind. Yeah, it's windy. And if you check up, there is no wind. And this part is a part which maybe, if we use the terms of music theory, this they call fakey recapitulation. What is a fakey recapitulation? I am here in the B part, and I am developing my ideas. But the public, the ideal listener, doesn't know when we will come back to the recapitulation. So as maybe to disguise my recapitulation, I create a fakey recapitulation, so as the ideal listener to think, oh, there we are, we started with our recapitulation. No, that's fakey, and the recapitulation is coming later. Famous example, Appassionata from Beethoven, and especially the C major sonata of Mozart, who composed it in Mannheim. So, I would like here to show you shortly the way to see the painting. Maybe from up to down, or down to up. Is this my A part up and my A slash part down, or opposite? So, as I've said, we have this fakey recapitulation. And the fakey recapitulation we see clearly with those dotted lines, because as you see here, the fakey recapitulation up and the recapitulation right, they are similar, but they're not identical. The upper part of it, I am here at the beginning of the development, has the trees that they go to the right. So this cannot be a fakey recapitulation, because this is something new. So I tend to believe that we could see this painting from up to down. I'm not generalizing, I just speak about only this painting. If we go now to the allegro of the Sonata of the Sun. And here I must add too that the composers since 250 years, they were using the sonata form mostly in the first movement. So we speak now about the first movement. So here I just want to show you a small part of this painting which shows what kind of details you can here observe. If you go to the museum and check in front of you the painting, you cannot even see those details. This is the digitized form of this, the digitized painting. So going now towards to the painting. As you see here, we have a lot of suns. Okay, the Sonata of the Suns, and a lot of trees that we had also before. So there are many subjects here to check. And the birds. So we will focus now on the upper left part. So we have three kinds of layers. The layer of this upper left, then down, and in the middle. So let's check the upper left part in detail. We have all possible elements that we have in the painting, during the whole painting. The sun, the bird, the church, and those trees. And I think this is a reflection, and this must be maybe the sea. So just I want to show you that this kind of church looks very identical. So here we see the island that I will visit in 2 days with the island Cygnus in Greece. It's a Cycladic island, and what kind of coincidence we have here. It's such kind of, especially upper left, comparing it with that. But that's a coincidence. And I'm showing you now a second coincidence, Serenity 1904. This looks very similar to the island of Telendos. This is the picture from the height of Kalymnos. Okay? So if you see at night, before 25 years ago, now I don't know, at night there were two tavernas. So indeed you could see the light from those two tavernas. So I visited Kalymnos, I have seen how Telendos looks like, and when I saw 2015 this painting, I said, oh my God, this is Telendos. Okay? So let's continue now to our sonata. And those stars that you see here, the suns, they are really close together. So this could be the double line that I was telling you about, that the exposition is here. Double line means repeat. We repeat the exposition. And then we have the B part and A part slash, which we want all once again to repeat. So there is some kind, until 1820, in the musical form of the sonata, there is a kind of duality. The A part is here, I repeat this, and then I have the B and A slash part, which I will again repeat. So now my impression is that, okay, this is the first, let's say, layer, the second, and the third here. And if we check the colors, the blue color of number 2 and number 3, and the brown color of number 1, and the dotted lines. Here I want to make just a small, let's say, meant to mention shortly that I was working 2 years ago for the Museum of Čiurlionis, editing the manuscripts. And I had time, and I said, okay, now I will go and I will check the paintings. Not as a visitor that comes 1 hour and goes, but just focus on one painting, half an hour. You don't want to, you go back to work. Then you come once more, you check another painting. So all those observations that you have seen now, I created a presentation which I have presented twice at the Museum of Čiurlionis. And now, next February, there's going to be the grand opening of some of the paintings at the Museum of Belvedere in Holland, in Herenveen, which I will present also. So, exposition, development, recapitulation. Development and recapitulation. And that's our exposition. Now I'm going to the Sonata of the Serpent, showing that now, because I'm myself a composer, I have composed a piece looking from my window, the forest from left to right, and there were some houses or electric, columns there. So I composed my piano piece looking from left to right. Okay, I have done it. But second and third, I use this idea in a more abstract way. I have done it once. So the same, I think, I observed to Čiurlionis. This is the Čiurlionis, the snake, look pointing to us, maybe from up to down. We have here those columns. We have here the stones, and we have some trees. But more I cannot tell you. More I don't see. I see only the sonata form during the early sonatas. The more I go towards the late sonatas, the more blurred everything becomes. So I think it's a good sign. That's a sign of a good artist, to start with an idea, expressing this idea, and then developing this idea. Just only to show you that the andante creates an atmosphere in the music. Since the 17th, late 17th, beginning of 18th century, the second movements of the concerti, they have the so-called cantilene. It's an eternal melody where the orchestra accompanies the soloist. So I see here an impression. Dr. Stefan Lewandowski from the University of Cottbus saw live this painting at the basement of the museum and said, is this a musical piece in D minor or Fis major? We have 6 accidentals, 6 sharps, maybe. So that was not my idea, never thought about it. So nevertheless, it's something from up going down. The andante of the second movement of the sonata, also something, it creates an atmosphere, creates an impression. No musical form of the sonata form here, just goes up to down. Also the same with the second movement of this sonata, the reflection from up to down, also an atmosphere. And now let's go to scherzi, which I find maybe the most important part. I read to the scientific articles about scherzi of Čiurlionis, about the scherzo character. But in the music, we have scherzo, trio, scherzo. Optically, how does a typical scherzo look like? All instruments are playing, maybe forte, which means loud, everybody, that's a tutti. And then when the trio comes, there are no 3 instruments, but there are 3 voices. It's more chamber music-like. Many times it's also piano, quiet. So we continue, and then checking this painting. This I've never written in a paper on scherzos of Čiurlionis. If you know that, please tell me. So we see here, maybe this is the scherzo, that's the scherzo, and then check out in the middle, this is my trio. Do you see the trio? There are 3 red roses. There are many red roses, but the 3 roses in the middle of the painting, they're bright. So I would also scherzo 3 geometric signs, or what it is, maybe 3 fishes. And now let's go to this sonata of the scherzo, 1908. I was giving for the second time this presentation in the museum, and next to the director, next to Dinah, who was standing one 18-year-old girl. And I said, sorry guys, I cannot find in this sonata the trio. And then the girl said, I know where's the trio. Do you see the trio? The 18-year-old girl saw that. 3 trees. We were speaking before about the trees. Maybe Yeah. Okay, we have 7 angels in the upper part, 7 angels in the lower part. Of course, it is a scherzo, goes from up to down. We know that from the literature very well. But where is the trio of the scherzo? So maybe there are the 3 trees. Also, if you check the trio of the Sonata of the Pyramids, I think 7 lights of the sun goes down, but in the middle there are 3 that they are really white and with intense light. And the finale, speaking a little bit of the finale of this sonata, this has, I think, to do with the 9th Symphony of Beethoven, because the 4th movement of the 9th Symphony of Beethoven starts with something new. Then it's for the first time in music history, I believe, that comes a little bit the first movement, stops, 4th movement, black, a little bit of the 2nd movement, 4th movement, a little bit of the 3rd movement, and then the famous melody An die Freude, which is there. Going now to our bell, which is again bound from up down to the cosmic web. So there is really, since 2000, 2005, the scientific terminus about cosmic web, and now we see the cosmic web starts from up to down with the bell, which has the 1st movement, the 2nd movement, the 3rd movement, and the 4th movement, which is now our movement. I think I have 3-4 minutes more. Yeah, 5 minutes I have. So I will speak about the fugue, not the famous fugue, prelude and fugue. I will speak about prelude, fugue, and finale, where very few musicians spoke about it. So I was perplexed. I didn't know what is a fugue here. Okay, so I know fugue very well. I teach fugue my students since 20 years. And I said, okay, cool. And somehow subconsciously, my eyes, during those half an hours of breaks from my works with the manuscripts, going to the paintings, and I was just looking 10 minutes. So instinctively, that was not my choice. Instinctively, my brain went to those 4 windows. And I saw the lower part of the last window, so I got an idea. Checked my analysis of the fugues of Johann Sebastian Bach, of well-tempered clavier, and I saw following thing. Here, if we check now oppositely, from down to up, there is something which I don't know what it is, but it is brown, then is nothing, and then again. 2nd window, the whole time this brown thing. 3rd window, a little bit at the beginning and nothing. And here, an intense use of this something, which I have, I show it as with a green arrow. Shortly, what is the simplified version of a fugue? Fugue means chasing. If you chase a musical subject, one plays this, then the next plays the same, slightly different harmonically, then you drive your music. But if you continue with this chasing, it's technical, but it is very important, you will land at the end, during the last voice or the next part, to the wrong tonality. So you need to stop with chasing. The music continues, but you stop with chasing, you modify again harmonically your music, so as again to start with chasing in the tonality that you want to. So let's say the parts with chasing are green, the brown parts no chasing, adjusting yourself. There is also a part of an episode where it's more free, it's not so strictly organized. And then at the end you have the so-called stretta. Stretta is the most intense way of chasing. Okay, that's enough for you now. We call it stretta. So that's a fugue in G minor from Johann Sebastian Bach. I'm not saying that Bach was influenced from this piece, but if I want to teach my students Bach fugue, I will use this one. Other ones also, but also this one. So here is an analysis. Okay, it looks like Chinese, but this is the bars 1 until 9 in continuous here, here, and there. 4 parts. I hope you see the Roman letters here and there. So here starts the chasing, here needs to stop to adjust the harmony, and then back. The second, the third, and the fourth part. This is the painting, this is the analysis of Bach. Turned it 90 degrees, and this is a painting. And this is the analysis, and this is the painting. Maybe this is the fugue. Maybe the windows of this painting is a fugue. So my daughter, after 6 years old, after attending my lecture, then came home and painted. Look, Papa, I painted you one fugue for you. So there were 4 windows. Yeah. And just for 1 minute at the end, exactly the opposite. How was influenced Čiurlionis as a painter now, then how he composed. There's literature about taking the waves of Jura and interpreting as lines for paintings and matching together. Well, this Jura that they got is not the Jura of Čiurlionis, this is the version of Balsis. Now we tried to recreate the authentic Jura of Čiurlionis without the additives of Balsis and Batsavucius. So now let's go here and now check following thing. Professor Landsbergis, Vytautas Landsbergis, wrote a book about an edition of most of the piano works of Čiurlionis with a layout which was, let's say, not optimal. I know how to use in a decent way the notation program, so with my decent knowledge it was possible to improve this layout. So I have done this. So I have checked note by note 90% of the piano works of Čiurlionis. So to me came out from the moment that he started to paint professionally, lines, chromatic lines occur to his music. Chromatic line is ta-ra-ra-ram, ta-ra-ram. So here are the lines, half an hour of work of showing you how the lines will look like. So some lines are coming, some lines are disappearing, some lines are coming again. You don't need to check the pictures of Čiurlionis, just check this picture. How many lines stop and come again? Stop and come again. New ones, they finish. New ones, others that start and finish. So in an abstract way, this could be a way that Čiurlionis was influenced as a composer through his painting career. So, thank you so much for your attention.
Great. Thank you very much for this amazing presentation. And of course we have some questions and commentaries, ideas, kažkokių pastebėjimų, idėjų, klausimų ar komentarų. I was really amazed by the idea that the composer makes a picture as a sketch for his music, and it was always in my mind, in fact, that especially sonatas works are some, like you are in the room of master and a lot of instruments around, a lot of sketches and a lot of things before some huge big work, and he makes piece by piece something, things again, remakes it, and it's so easy and so visually clear when you make it on picture fast, and then because music is in very different relation to the time, so you cannot just yeah.
Here we have to do with a genius of the paintings and genius of music. So as my students in Austria to describe Čiurlionis, I say then, imagine a person that's now in the national team of football of Germany and at the same time in the national basketball team of Germany. Such a case of an athlete you will never find. Yeah? And this is maybe a problem for us, because no matter how good I am as a composer, I don't possess the same knowledge of painting, and opposite. When painters speaking about the musical paintings, they don't possess this knowledge that we musicians and musicologists and music theorists have. So I see this kind of presentation as a possibility of bringing those worlds together, the interdisciplinary work. And now, if I have just 1 minute,
yes,
I need...
It's interesting, you have as much time as you want.
Okay. I need now to improvise a little and to react positively to what Professor said us a couple, 1 hour before, that here, considering the way that we see Čiurlionis, for example, there are a lot of things to do. Not only to focus on the standardized stuff that we had already. For example, 1908 Čiurlionis was in Vilnius, so there it was probably the first time that harmonized folk songs were played in a concert, harmonized by Čiurlionis. In his dialect of Dzhukia, the state where he comes from, and at the same time was played for the first time the first orchestral work of Čiurlionis, which was the first movement of De Profundis, played on the piano. So I was asking, how many times did Lithuania recreate this legendary concert? I asked the specialist, none. In Austria, where I come from and teach, they will have done already 20 times this concert, and we will have had already scientific musicological papers of the reception of Čiurlionis through to those legendary concerts. So my idea was to recreate this concert. I was the only one, the first one that came to this idea. I found 2 choirs, I found 2 Patreons, so we represented at the day of the concert to the same place in Vilnius, the same day, the concert, and at this concert there were also dances and lottery afterwards. Okay, we didn't dance until 4 o'clock as the newspapers say, but we danced and we had a lottery like the time. So Vytautas Landsbergis, I invited him personally to the concert, so he was amazed of how those harmonized folk songs look like in the original form, because the printed version has a lot of additings of editors. The printed version of Miške of Jura is not the original Jura. The printed version of several piano works of Čiurlionis is not the original Čiurlionis. This is what we want to do now. So we heard original Čiurlionis. For example, Subatos Vaccarelli. Wow, for 6 voices. It was magnificent for me as a foreigner. So we have recreated this legendary concert for the first time. There is no, until now, public concert playing together the whole De Profundis. So I'm trying to do that. Yeah? So as Professor Pravic said, we need to do our homeworks. We haven't done our homeworks. Yeah? So we need to go further from that we know. So one part of it is also to recreate the original or the most authentic version of the works of Čiurlionis, which we perform and sounds great. So this is one of my tasks over the next 5-6 years.
It's